Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo, back after a couple of weeks. Still barely down and out here with a cold, but we're here to talk about everyone's favorite position of all time, the tight ends, the most useful, the most highly sought after, the need to leave your draft with these kind of guys, the tight end position, right up there with punters and long snappers in terms of how many points they score in fantasy football. We are talking rookie NFL draft tight end prospects because we are now a week away. We're now a week away from the NFL draft, which feels kind of crazy. That's kind of snuck up on us pretty quickly here. But we have Brandon Haye from DLF and League Winners joining us here to preview the rookie tight ends. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. Joshua, tonight, Ryan is dealing with wind. That's all his text said. He just said wind, and that was it. Nothing more. Very creepy. But in his place, Mr. Brandon Haye from DLF and League Winners. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm good. I'm glad to join. I just want to say tight ends matter.
No, they don't. I could list you off 700 reasons why they don't. So, number one being that the kicker one would have finished as the tight end 2 this year. So
kickers matter too. So
if we're banning kickers in leagues, we should ban tight ends. That's all I'm saying. I think we should give people the option to never play a tight end. I play in a league like that. It's fantastic. You have 5 flex spots. You are not required to start a tight end. I haven't drafted a tight end in that league in 3 years. It's awesome.
I'm in a couple of leagues where it is mandatory that you start 2 tight ends.
Why do you throw away your money like that?
And in those drafts that I'm with these people, I always forget halfway through the draft that we have to start 2 tight ends. So I have a bunch of backup tight ends that I hope just catch a touchdown every game.
Do you have the commissioner's home address by chance?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Well, if you did, I feel we should air that out live on air, and we all collectively find a date, go egg his house, and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" Because that's just mean.
Nobody's egging any houses. Have you seen the prices of eggs these days?
What do you mean? There's 30,000 real eggs for the White House lawn egg roll. What do you mean? Eggs are fine. Get out of here. It says Dynasty Nerds plug.
Yeah, just pick me, man.
Yeah, so go ahead, Josh. I was going to make a joke about an actual plug in a wall, but then you ruined it. But go ahead.
I figured you would because this is what you do. No, head over to dynastynerds.com, enter code CLUBFANTASY at checkout, save yourself 15% on any one of their memberships. This is the time you want to get to know your rookies. Take advantage of this deal because this gives you full access to the Dynasty Nerds prospect film room on top of all of their other tools that they provide, a la their Dynasty GM, trade calculator, Discord link, all that good stuff. DynastyNerds.com. Use promo code CLUBFANTASY at checkout and save yourself 15%. Check out all these rookies because there's a lot of great tape on all of them, and even some that you may not know based on some of the shows that we're talking about, some of these guys.
Yeah, like me. I don't know any single one of them. I learned today who Oronde Gadsden was, and I was told it's Oronde Gadsden's son. That meant nothing to me. That guy could work selling perfume at Macy's. That's what that sounds like to me. But we have Brandon's top 10 tight ends of the 2025 class, and we'll go from 1 to 10 in order. Number 1, I have heard this guy's name because nobody will stop talking about him. Tyler Warren out of Penn State. Number 2, Colston Loveland from Michigan. 3, Mason Taylor out of LSU. Gunnar Helm from Texas and Elijah Arroyo, round up the top 5 out of Miami. Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. Luke Lackey, Lachi, how do you say it?
I might be wrong, but I think it's Lachey.
That's wrong. Whatever. All of us are wrong. None of us are correct in how you pronounce that name.
We'll just call him Luke. We'll just call him
And
Luke.
and you know what? He's from Iowa, so odds are he's the best tight end in this class. I mean, if we're going off odds in tight end prospects, Oronde Gadsden II, son of Oronde Gadsden, went to Syracuse at number 9 and 10, rounding out the top 10. Thomas Fidone, Nebraska. He's irrelevant. He's not going to matter here in 6 months.
Oh, don't piss off Vince.
Is Vince a Nebraska fan?
He literally just chimed in. He was like, "Is this where we talk about Thomas Fidone, the second of his name?" Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't read that. Hi, Vince. How are
Of course
you?
you don't. Why would you read the comments? Because come on.
No.
Joe,
Well, hey, I did read this comment. Lachey still sounds wrong. So it's just he's little Luke, and that's what we're gonna name him by. So we're talking about, as much as I do dog on tight ends, this does feel like probably one of the better tight end prospect groups in recent memory. So there probably is a lot of prospects here, especially dynasty wise, maybe not year one production, because we don't really traditionally see that out of tight ends. Brock Bowers being the very strong outlier of that group, but a lot of people expected Bowers to be that. So when you talk about draft capital, who is a tight end where draft capital might be a little deceiving when anticipating fantasy production? Because as Brock Bowers was a first-round pick, we obviously saw how involved he was in the offense. But is there a guy here that, say, might be a first-round pick, could even be a high second, that people might bite on because of a good offense, potentially something like that, but you don't see it working out, at least in year one, especially in redraft?
I could see Gunnar Helm if he's in the second. I think he's a good all-around tight end, but it's kind of like last year with some tight ends like Theo Johnson for the Giants. It takes some time for them to get in, and then there's a freak injury in the middle of the season, so he might not have that production.
Yeah, I think this class is really interesting because, in years past, I feel like you get a lot of guys that come out that are better blockers than pass catchers. And teams like, I'll take Drew Sample as an example, right? When Cincinnati, no, I'm going the opposite round here. Okay. And let's not forget, Kyle Pitts did have 1,000 receiving yards in his rookie year. But
Eric Ebron.
But someone like Drew Sample, who was one of the top tight ends in his draft class when he was drafted, wasn't really put in a position to where he could produce a lot of fantasy relevant numbers, right? He's mainly going to be a blocker. He's going to be a bigger piece of the offense from helping us run the ball or create time for the quarterback, etc., right? And I think that's where this class gets flipped a little bit. Like, you do have some guys that are solid blockers, right? Like Tyler Warren's, I think he's probably the better all-around tight end in this class. Mason Taylor is a very good, well-rounded tight end. I think those two, in my opinion, are kind of the top all-around guys. I think Colston Loveland has that ability, but he's definitely a much better pass catcher than a blocker. But there's inevitably going to be a team that reaches on somebody because they're so good as a blocker, but then they go above somebody like maybe a Harold Fannin Jr., who we know is mainly going to be a pass catcher. And that really was kind of what I was trying to get at more so with this question was like, you say, Brandon, you've got Gunnar Helm here as your, top fourth tight end. Maybe he goes above like a Fannin or an Arroyo in the draft, but we're not looking at him because of the situation that he lands in from what he can do as a pass catcher, but because the team values him as a blocker.
No, I definitely agree. And I think this is a different class because I think both Warren and Loveland can produce year one. I would imagine if you're going to draft either of them in the first round, but then all the rest are kind of a toss-up, kind of situational type guys. The more receiving threats like Arroyo, Fannin, Gadsden, Joe's guy, Gadsden.
Sure.
They're more on the receiving end, so they might be used, in certain situations and might have some, more production, but I just don't see it necessarily being consistent.
Love Gadsden. Love that guy. Loved him ever since 857 when I learned his name. At day one Orange fan, right? Let me tell you. And now, Brandon, I have now learned from reading this question that Josh typed in here that you're a Michigan Wolverines fan.
I am.
And you don't have Colston Loveland as the number 1 tight end, which apparently Josh takes great offense to as a University of Miami fan.
So I was going to do it just to do it. I felt like, I had to stay on,
It's okay to be a homer sometimes, Brandon. It's okay.
I know. I choose to pick other positions to be homers, about than tight end. But, I mean, I think Loveland could be a better overall tight end than Warren. But Warren, I mean, last year at Penn State, they threw him the ball a ton because all their wide receivers are trash. And he can do some things out of the Wildcat. He's probably more athletic. I think Loveland's more of your traditional tight end. I think Warren's more of the guy that is kind of wide receiver, tight end, H-back type thing, and you can move him around. But I think both of them are really close. I'm actually surprised. I've seen some people say that they think Loveland will get drafted higher. I just think based on all the hype, Warren will go higher.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at this class and you kind of see the big breakouts at tight end over the last couple of years, like obviously Brock Bowers popped his rookie year, Sam Laporta popped his rookie year, even to a degree, like Kyle Pitts popped his rookie year. Like I said, he had 1,000 yards. So, to me, Tyler Warren is the closest comp just in usage and how Penn State used him to Brock Bowers, right? Like he's somebody that they would line up in the backfield. They would put him in these wildcat formations. They would put him on these jet sweeps. It was basically any way that we can get Tyler Warren the football, we're going to do it. And Georgia basically did the exact same thing with Brock Bowers in 2023. Last year, the Raiders essentially did the same thing with Brock Bowers after they drafted him. And honestly, that's what you're looking for, right? When a team is going to spend top 10, top 15, even a first-round pick on a tight end, find a way to get him involved in the offense because you're not spending a first-round pick to put him in line to block 75% of the time, right? Get him the football, throw him the football, get him involved. That's what you're getting with Tyler Warren. And I think the same thing is with Colston Loveland. To me, he's a Mark Andrews clone. Like he's somebody that can work the seams. He can work in line. Maybe he's not the greatest blocker, but he does enough to throw a defender off so that he can then get into his route and get open for his quarterback.
So the two guys we've gone about, Warren and Loveland, would you believe me if somebody has them going both in the top 7?
Not in the top 7.
That should never happen.
I think top 15 is
okay. Well, try the top 7 for the latest NFL mock draft on NFL.com, where I have just pulled this from. First off, mock drafts are the dumbest thing on planet Earth.
Yeah, they're kooky though.
Yeah, especially NFL mock drafts because there's a new one every day and they're all different. None of them ever add up. Anyways, the most recent one from Adam Rank. This is not to drag Adam Rank through anything like that, but he does have Tyler Warren going 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I will riot if that happens.
What I'm confused at is Brock Bowers was generational talent at the tight end position, and he went 13. You're telling me Tyler Warren is going to go 5, and then Colston Loveland will go 7 to the Jets.
That's not that's information that can't be transferred from year to year because you also have to look at the quality of prospect at other positions, needs at other positions for the teams that are drafting there, right? Like I get the idea behind the Jaguars going tight end because they decided to move off of Evan Ingram. The only thing that I don't get is Liam Cohen is not a coordinator that typically features a tight end. The only reason that Cade Otton did so well in that system last year with the Bucs was because they were down their top 2 wide receivers and they had nobody else to throw to. So they went to Cade Otton out of necessity. Once Chris Godwin came back, once Mike Evans came back, Cade Otton became an afterthought in that offense. It's going to be the exact same thing with moving off of Evan Ingram. There's no need to pay a tight end premium money in Jacksonville in Liam Cohen's system. That's why they're happy going with Brenton Strange, who can fit into that Cade Otton role in Liam Cohen's offense just fine.
And for the Jets, there's too many holes. Also, their Jaguar fans' Twitter is horrible. I actually have to block a lot of them
Twitter?
because just all
they're
really involved, and they want Genty at 5. I'm like, running back and tight end, we can't go at 5. First of all, because our team sucks. We have too many other pressing needs.
Are you a Jaguars fan?
I live in Jacksonville.
Oh, that sucks. Sorry. Continue.
Whoa, I think I'm leaving this podcast now. You first disrespect tight ends, the show that I'm yearly asked to come on, and then the Jackson. Hey, I'm telling you, Duval comes after people, so so just be ready. Just be ready.
I believe that.
Look,
I believe that.
The Jaguars were a central favorite in The Good Place. They have fans, I promise you. And that was still one of my most favorite bits from that show.
Jason.
I love that show. I love that show.
Blake Bortles, career completion percentage around 60%. Dog. Also, UCF legend, Blake Bortles.
There you go.
I love Blake Bortles.
The Blake Bortles to Brashad Perryman fed families in the AAC. Fed families.
I could see Liam Cohen and the Jaguars going the offensive route. I mean, anytime you bring in a new head coach, especially one that's favors a specific side of the ball, you're going to make that first draft pick on that side of the ball. I can see that. When we had John Laub on for the running back show, he actually mentioned the Jaguars as a landing spot for Ashton Genty, and Genty is from Jacksonville, right? Even from a PR perspective, it makes a ton of sense. Bring back the hometown kid, let him cook. You put Genty and Brian Thomas Jr. on the same offense, that's gonna put some butts in the seats. I'm sorry, even if the team is 5-12 or 6-11 or whatever it is, they're at least gonna be fun to watch on offense. You figure out the defense later. I mean, it is what it is, but
Do you figure out the defense later?
I mean, they can. They can. I mean,
won't.
That's basically, well, I mean, it all depends on the decision makers in charge, right? You got a first-time GM, long-time scout now in Gladstone there. Sure, it might make sense, as Vince points out, just take Mason Graham, right? Seems like a pretty clean prospect, strong defensive tackle. You obviously need help stopping the run. The Jaguars couldn't stop the run. It would make a ton of sense, sure. But, if Liam Cohen wants to feature a tight end, feature a running back, I can see it.
So
I'm not saying I agree with it, but I can see it.
So for reference, in this mock draft, I just looked why Tyler Warren is there. Cam Ward goes 1 to Tennessee. Abdul Carter goes 2 to the Cleveland Browns. Ashton Genty goes 3 to the Giants. If that happens,
they can't make that mistake again, right?
Can you imagine? Joe Shane is trying to save his ass so much that he takes Genty at 3. I got comedy gold, and then the Patriots take Travis Hunter at 4, and then leave Tyler Warren there to be 5. So it's very interesting how all over the place these mock drafts are, because I remember a short while ago that Tet McMillan was supposed to be going 4 to the New England Patriots and is projected 20th to the Denver Broncos now. So I don't really know what has happened to these receivers.
That's where he should go.
Probably, right? Yeah.
He should never have gone top 5. So that I guess people are finally coming to. Well, I guess they didn't realize he wasn't going to run a 4.3.
Yeah, right.
And then they have Emeka Egbuka. I've seen at 10. I've seen him at 27, and then he's 18.
I've seen him in the
Seahawks.
Second round in some picks.
Exactly. So it feels like there's no real consistency here. And there's 3 tight ends that go in this first round mock.
Yeah, well, that leads right into the next question. I love that.
The third tight end taken. All right, so I'm not going to tell you the team. I'll tell you the player. It is Mason Taylor. For those that don't know, that is the son of Miami Dolphins legend, and I believe NFL Hall of Famer, correct? Jason Taylor. For those that are not basically anybody younger than me, because that's probably kind of the age that remembers Jason Taylor. My brother might know Jason Taylor. He's 21. But he never really watched him in his heyday. Jason Taylor was one of the nastiest defensive ends of his time. He was ridiculous. So Jason Taylor was a dog. Mason Taylor is his son. He plays tight end, which is kind of funny because I feel like if you're a defensive end that size and you have good hands, congratulations, you're a tight end. That's pretty much how edge rushers are built now. If you can't catch, you're going to be D end. And if you can catch, congrats, you're a tight end. Brandon, if you had to guess, he's going in the 20s. If you had to guess a team in the 20s that is tight end needy that you think, oh my God, they would spend a first round pick on Mason Taylor, who would that team be, Brandon? We'll play a little guessing game. If you'd like, I can list off the teams in the 20s.
Yes, do that.
Beautiful. So we already know the Broncos take Tet McMillan. I already spoiled that one. Starting at 21 and going to 29. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Houston Texans, Los Angeles Rams, Baltimore Ravens, Detroit Lions, Washington Commanders.
I say the Chargers.
The Chargers is the correct answer. And congratulations, Vince. You hit that one as well. The typing in here is the NFL being a copycat league as it is. I'm thinking we'll see some emphasis put on the tight end position after the successes of Sam Laporta and Brock Bowers. That is what Adam Rank writes for his reasoning.
I mean, the reasoning should be Jim Harbaugh is their coach, and he loves tight ends.
Correct.
That should be
same thing with Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
He paid Bill Dissly.
I mean, I think I personally think Loveland will be around there. So if he's not there, I don't know if I would pick Mason Taylor in the first round. Early second, I'd be okay with that. But how this draft is weird, where there's not a lot of what people are throwing around the world generational way too much now.
Correct.
But there's not a lot of those, and I think that's why everyone's I think they're just throwing stuff against the wall and like, hey, I said this and it happened.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is there's so few elite players. And instead of saying elite, people want to say generational because it's more buzzworthy, right? Like it catches more eyes. But there's not a ton of elite prospects in this class. I think, truthfully, there's three. It's Carter, it's Hunter, and who's the Genty. Like to me, those are like the three elite guys in this class. And then everybody else is like they're solid prospects. There's good ones, but like there's not any like franchise movers, right?
There's good ones that can become great.
I agree, right? The right coaching, right system, right situation. There's guys that could, if they're put in the right spot, yeah, maybe they find themselves on Hall of Fame trajectories. But to me, those are like the three elite guys in this class. And I think the only one that would even push for generational would be Hunter, just because he's coming into this league doing something that really nobody is doing.
Nobody's done.
Yeah. So that to me is the only guy that even warrants that term in a conversation. Whether he fits the bill or not, it's a different story. But yeah, I mean, I think the Chargers are a prime spot for a tight end. I personally think that Loveland will be around when it comes down to it. But Greg Roman loves tight ends. Like he had Vernon Davis in San Francisco. He had Mark Andrews in Baltimore. I mean, this is a guy whose system works with the tight end. That's why I thought that they might actually instead of going Joe Alt like they did at 5, maybe they would take the bait and go with Brock Bowers. I was pitching that last year. Little surprised they didn't, but I get wanting that stud franchise, tackle, even though you already have Rashawn Slater, but is what it is. But now you've got strong bookends, right? And you need to protect your stud quarterback that you're paying $50 some odd million a year. So, it makes sense to kind of wait a year, especially with the depth of the tight end position in this class, right? Get that strong tackle. Now you move on to the tight ends. Like, yeah, they added Tyler Conklin this offseason. They signed Will Dissly last year. Any of these top 3, 4, 5 guys in this class, I would take over that tight end group.
I want to go back to that elite generational talk you're talking about. I'm just looking at the top 15 tight ends from last season in terms of receiving yards. Now, I will preface that Juwan Johnson cracks this list, so let's just bear with me here on that. But
wait, are you hating on Juwan too? Are you hating on everything I love?
I like Juwan Johnson. Let me get that straight. I thought he was gonna have good success with Derek Carr coming in. I was like,
I thought he would be. I thought he would be putting up better numbers, but he keeps getting hurt. And that's the problem.
Well, and Derek Carr is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all should have.
Which goes back to the point of situation and scheme matters.
Well, my big thing is we're talking about generational elite and then good. And if I'm looking at every single tight end here in the top 15, and you could extend this completely even further, but the top 15, I think the only guy that coming into the draft, we were saying, yeah, generational, was Brock Bowers. Trey McBride, George Kittle, Jonnu Smith, even Travis Kelce, none of them even entered the good conversation. They were just like, they're solid prospects, but none of them, especially George Kittle or Trey McBride, were like,
I think Kittle was like a 5th round pick. McBride was the first tight end off the board in his class, but
he was late.
I don't even think I was going to say he was like a late 2nd, 3rd round pick.
He was like 2nd or 3rd round pick.
Yeah, because that was a really weak class, and he came from a smaller school. So
I believe every guy on this list, except Brock Bowers and Kyle Pitts, were day 2 or day 3 picks.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Kelce wasn't day 1.
Nope.
Kittle wasn't day 1. Hunter Henry, Mark Andrews, not day 1. Gesicki, not day 1. David Njoku, not day 1. He's lower.
Yeah, he was. He was the first round pick.
Oh, well, he's outside the top 15. So then that still works in my favor in this conversation. But it is very interesting that we do say generational in all these things. And Vince brings up Kincaid was pretty highly touted.
Yeah, he was the first round pick in his class. Yeah.
Yeah. And they weren't saying generational, but they were saying, good prospect, when that was probably a decent saying for him. But yeah, like Brock Bowers is generational. We can still sit here and say that Tyler Warren is a good prospect with tools to come in and produce on day 1 and still keep him in a different tier than Brock Bowers. And that's okay, everyone. That's fine. Everything's okay. No one's dying. Everything's going to be fine. That we can do that, and everyone can sing Kumbaya and be okay at the end of the day. All right? Because all you have to do to make the top 10 is to have 666 receiving yards and be better than Mike Gesicki. That's it. That's all you have to do to be a decent tight end in the NFL, especially in fantasy football. But it is a good point. This whole throwing out the generational term is very takey and not really true meaning to what it is. Why did I blame Travis Hunter? Probably the generational talent. Abdul Carter, not generational, just really fucking good. Just really good. That's exactly what he has. Moving on to UT, Gunnar Helm has only 1 season of solid production. Horrible run blocker. Welcome, Mike Gesicki. What kind of role do you see him filling in for NFL teams, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be. He could get better at blocking. He's more of a traditional tight end in like the routes he runs and everything like that. He's not really like the hybrid tight end. So Texas used him a lot in the red zone. I think he caught like 8 passes in the first half against Michigan. It was very demoralizing. But like I said, I don't see a big role for him the first season. Kind of maybe near the end of the season, he'll get more work. But he's definitely a guy in Dynasty you're kind of waiting for the future years.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm not a big Gunnar Helm guy. I think he's really stiff when he runs his routes, especially getting into his breaks, shedding defenders. There's just not a lot of movement in his hips. I like the fact that you can line him up anywhere. Like he'll line up inside, he'll line up in the slot, he can line up out wide. Like you can move him around a formation, but I don't know. I would much rather even just go with some of these other like more athletic tight ends like an Arroyo or a Fannin Jr. that I know I can move around that are going to be really good pass catchers than somebody like Gunnar Helm. Just me personally.
the UT and playing with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, that doesn't persuade you a little bit?
No, not even a little bit.
No?
But also a large reason why I'm down on Matthew Golden. So there's that.
Who's Matthew Golden? You're talking to a guy who is completely illiterate when it comes to college football, because I don't care
wide
until they get in the
receiver
NFL.
that ran the fastest 40 time at the combine.
He's actually someone I like quite a bit.
Okay.
Cool. Tavon Austin, John Ross.
He's not like that. He's
That's what they all say. That's what they say about all of them. That's what they say. Dree Archer. That's what they say. Say they're not like the last guy.
Dree Archer was like a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
Dree Archer was a dog, but he did run a 4.26 at the combine.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with Golden, I mean, we talked about it last week, so I don't want to go too much into wide receivers, but it just for somebody that runs as fast as he did at the combine, you don't see it as much on tape. And I think that's the misconception when it comes to drafting him, but
sure.
I digress.
I will mention in the 5-round mock, Gunnar Helm goes in the 4th round to the Los Angeles Rams. How does that make you feel if he goes there?
I like that spot for him.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, the way that Sean McVay uses the tight end, I mean,
I said, that's going to be like maybe a year or two down the road, but he uses tight ends quite a bit. I like how he uses them. So I actually like that spot.
Yeah, that's definitely a big investment spot. I mean, you've got the last years of Tyler Higbee and kind of how they use him. So, if Gunnar Helm can come in and, learn the blocking scheme a little bit better, I think he could definitely be a useful tight end and have a few streaming quality weeks if he were to fall in that system.
While I'm sitting here, because I do see this guy going in the 4th round as well, led all of college football in receiving yards. Pretty damn good. And Brandon, you got him as your tight end 7. In this mock, he goes 4th round, pick 105 to the New York Giants. How does that make you feel about Harold Fannin Jr.?
Well, I don't love that as someone that really likes Theo Johnson, but the reason I have Fannin so much lower than probably a lot of people is at the Senior Bowl, he didn't really do a lot that you expected. A lot of people expected him to dazzle and everything, and so as a tight end, I think he has some athletic ability, but you're not really using him as tight end because of his size and everything. He's a big wide receiver. So if you compare him to wide receivers, he doesn't necessarily have that athletic ability. And I think he could be used like someone like Isaiah Likely for the Ravens. But you see, it took Isaiah Likely a few years to really, kind of get going and everything. So I think he could be a big part of a football team more than, just full on production early on in his career.
Yeah, I feel like the Isaiah Likely comp has been thrown around a lot. And I know some people are like, oh, that's really lazy because, he's a small school guy too. Like, no, I mean, they're built very similarly, like not super tall, like a more traditional tight end, but, they're bigger, right? Like, I think Fannin came in at a little over 230, if I'm not mistaken. I think at one point he was listed at like 250, but he weighed in a lot lower than that when they were doing their measurements. But yeah, I mean, he's somebody that gets open. I mean, you don't lead all of NCAA in receiving yards by mistake, right? And I mean, he also produced when they played Texas A&M and Penn State. Like, he put up over 100 yards and a touchdown on both of those teams. So, for the people that are just like, oh, well, he just beat up on inferior competition. I mean, he's doing it against power, before school or whatever the term they're using for the top 4 conferences nowadays. But
Bowling Green took Penn State to the ropes. They almost beat them.
And that's what I'm saying, right? And Penn State ended up in the college football playoff. So, there's a lot to look at with Harold Fannin that it's just like, okay, cool. I think the biggest disappointment with him is kind of very similar to Xavier Restrepo with the wide receivers, right? Like, he put up a great production, did well at Miami, but then ran like a 4.8 40 at his pro day. And now it's just
slow.
You're just too damn slow to play in the NFL, right? And with Fannin, the way that he plays, his game is athleticism. It's going down the seam. It's beating, smaller off-ball linebackers and being able to bully the smaller slot corners, right? And he runs like over, I think it was a 4.73 40 or something along those lines. And that's not the type of athletic tight end that people really want. So I think with Fannin, it's more of you want to pay more attention to the tape versus the underwear Olympics. And I think some team is really going to get a good value with Fannin in the 3rd, 4th round. If
I think scheme and creativity with him is going to be big.
Yeah.
Like if he goes to a team that just doesn't think outside the box, then he's not going to be a typical tight end. Like if you're asked, he's not a great blocker. If you ask him to do those type of things, he's not going to be good. But if you use him in the correct way, he could be very explosive and everything. I think this draft is big on a lot of players like that. They need to go to the right spot.
So I was just thinking uber athletic tight ends. Does anybody know how fast Kyle Pitts ran?
He was in the 4.4s. I think like 4.48.
Does he play like he runs a 4.4 40?
No, because the Falcons don't use him that way.
So
yeah, but he was another one. I remember when we did that tight end show, and everybody was like gushing over Kyle Pitts, and he was going to be a top 5 pick that year, et cetera, et cetera. Like when he came out and ran and tested the way that he did, I really did not remember seeing a lot of that on Florida's tape. Like, yeah, the touchdowns and everything were there, but like the super fast, like the agility and all that stuff, like he was really stiff in that offense, in my opinion.
I mean, and the thing was, I didn't even really talk about this, when he was getting drafted, but Florida used him as a big receiver. They didn't use him as like a tight end, in that sense. So people should have kind of seen, like, if you try to use him as a tight end, 1, 2, Arthur Smith is horrible. So that didn't help. But
it feels like using those guys that come in as tight ends, those big tight ends, they look so good in college because the guys they're playing against in college as a big tight end, it's a mismatch no matter where you line them up. So when they go to the NFL and you line up Kyle Pitts on the outside against, again, just thinking inside the division, Marshawn Lattimore or someone of that stature, Devin Witherspoon, who's come into Seattle, they are going to lock him up, no problem.
Well, and that's exactly what Atlanta did in those first couple of years when Arthur Smith was there. And you saw really quickly that, Kyle Pitts only did what he did his rookie year because they literally had nobody else. They didn't have Drake London until his second year. The moment they got Drake London, Kyle Pitts came right back to earth. And it just kind of became, why did we spend a top 5 pick on this guy?
Yeah, just want to bring that up. Moving back into the 3rd round of this 5-round mock that I'm looking at, because I see 3 tight ends going in the 3rd round. Kind of feels right for that position. But the first one in the 3rd round goes to pick 80. The Indianapolis Colts select Elijah Arroyo out of the University of Miami. Brandon, I will go to you first because we have the Miami fan over here on the bottom left of the screen. What do you like? What do you dislike about Elijah Arroyo?
I like a lot with Arroyo. I think the biggest thing is injuries. He's had a really bad injury history. Miami, even coming into the combine and everything at the Senior Bowl, he looked amazing. He probably was one of the best tight ends in terms of receiving. So that's why he was a little lower because of the injuries. But he could be a dynamic playmaker, at the tight end position, if he can stay healthy. So that's the biggest thing. But I think the upside with him, 3rd round, I think that's the right spot.
Josh,
I really wouldn't be shocked if there's a team towards the tail end of the 2nd round that pulls a trigger on Arroyo. Like you mentioned earlier, Brandon, I think there's so many of these tight ends. It's all going to boil down to scheme because there's only so many offenses in the NFL that traditionally want to throw to the tight end. Even if they have somebody that can get open, that can do these, seam routes and be a matchup advantage in their offense, they're just like, you know what? That's just not my offense. So you're the 3rd read, 4th read in the offense. And hopefully the quarterback can, work through progressions that we know quarterbacks just don't do nowadays. So I think with Arroyo, I look at a team, and I'll kind of spoil it when we talk landing spots. Like, I look at a team like the Chiefs. Like, to me, he's a better version of Noah Gray. Like, he's somebody that can come in that can really be that seam stretcher, that can do a lot of what Kelsey does on the offensive side and not like the blocking side of it, where he can kind of be that Isaiah Likely to Mark Andrews, right? And that's kind of the way that I see that Chiefs offense sort of evolving. Like, if they were to get Arroyo more involved as Travis Kelsey, like they want to keep him fresh in the regular season, etc. Like, that's the kind of role that Arroyo could play in that Chiefs offense. I think Arroyo is a much better blocker than a lot of people give him credit for. And they moved him around the formation. He played everywhere. He played H-back. He played inline, slot, out wide. They moved him around everywhere. He was solid with the chip block, getting into his routes. He moves really well. And he's got the speed to break away too. Like, and get downfield more than anything, because if there's a broken play, he's got 15 yards between him and the safety, and you just hit him and he's there for you. So I think he's probably a slightly less athletic version of Jonnu Smith. That's kind of the way that I comped him. But I'm a big Arroyo fan. To me, he's the fourth best tight end in this class.
Moving to the 5th round, and the final tight end off the board in this 5-round mock just happens to be the number 1 mid to late round sleeper out of Nebraska. With the 175th pick, the compensatory selection of the Seattle Seahawks, they choose Thomas Fidone, the second, out of Nebraska. Brandon, you have him as one of your favorite mid to late round sleepers. What do you like about Fidone, and would you like the Seattle Seahawks landing spot in the 5th round?
Well, he's another player that he's had even worse injury history than Arroyo. Like, he tore his ACL like his first 2 seasons at Nebraska. So he's starting to get back. He was another player at the Senior Bowl. I thought he looked pretty good. He's a pretty good blocker. He's got good size, and do that. I kind of like a lot of the tight ends at Seattle, but if they get him in the 5th round, and he could kind of just have a year or two to get experience, and then maybe down the line, I'm not sure, because Carroll always liked, tight ends, not necessarily to throw the ball, but to be, involved in the offense. I'm not totally sure what Seattle really wants to do moving forward, since they just traded DK, Lockett's gone. So I'm not totally sure what that offense is going to look like. And they have Sam Darnold.
Sammy D.
Yeah, that offense is going to be really interesting. I mean, you've got Clint Kubiak coming in after 1 year with the Saints. He's now the Seahawks offensive coordinator. I mean, the Saints utilize the tight end, but it's not like a big focal point, especially last year with, how much they rotated that position. I mean, for a guy that, essentially missed his first 2 years in college, I mean, the production pretty mid. I mean, I don't think he topped a little over 400 yards in 2023, not even 400 last year. Didn't have any touchdowns last year. I mean, he's an okay prospect, but I mean, got good size. I mean, he's 6'6", 255. So, I mean, I think a healthy Thomas Fidone can do something, which, not too bad. Started out at Oregon, finished at Nebraska. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that much about him. This is a Brandon topic. So,
well, yeah, this is one of the guys that you're really looking at traits. That's why I think the Senior Bowl really helped him, because a lot of people were impressed with like what he looked like. But yeah, because sometimes with tight ends you don't get that production, because to be honest, in college they don't use tight ends a ton. Like you're like a good season.
It's a lot of projection.
Yeah, it's like 300, 400 yards, unless you're someone like Brock Bowers. So you're looking at tape, seeing stuff that you kind of like, and that's why these all-star games that they go to are so important to watch the practices and everything, because you're not going to see the production and everything, and they don't get a lot of targets every game. So even if you're watching the all 22 or anything, you might see them only get 4 targets a game, and that's hard to really make an evaluation just based on that.
Moving into where will the top prospects land? Some of these are unanimous. Some of these are completely, everybody has a different team. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. Ryan did put his answers in here, so we'll mention that as well. Tyler Warren, pretty single-handedly across the board, everyone thinks he's going to the New York Jets. Well, let me tell you, not in this 5-round mock. They don't have him going to the Jets. They have him going to the Carolina Panthers at pick 8, just after the New York Jets. Because at 7, the New York Jets select Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Mississippi. So again, when I tell you that mock drafts are the dumbest thing on planet Earth, Jackson Dart's the 7th pick in this draft.
I don't necessarily think mock drafts are the dumbest thing. I think it's fun, but I think really what this mock draft cycle, what this mock draft cycle has really shown us, and Brandon, I'm sure you can attest to this, is that there really aren't any surefire prospects. There's a lot of good ones, but really it depends on scheme and it depends on fit. And that's where a lot of these guys are going to look at. Like, I mean, I think the Jets make the most sense based on their needs on offense, but they also need a quarterback, in my opinion, because Justin Fields isn't the answer, but they're going to go into this year with Justin Fields. So you need to get him some weapons. Cole Kmet didn't look half bad the last year that Justin Fields started in Chicago. DJ Moore looked really good. So if you try to replicate some of that, maybe Tyler Warren fits that sort of Sam Laporta role that the Detroit Lions had with Tanner Engston, I believe his last name is. I know I mispronounced that, but he's coming from that Detroit Lions system. So I think we're going to get a lot of those types of influences with the Jets this year. I think that the Jets would be smart to go tackle. Like if Membao from Missouri is there, I think that should be the pick. But I think
I'll spoil that in this mock draft. He slides to 10 and goes to the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, that's dumb. But no, if he's there at 7, I firmly believe he should be the pick. But I think really the Jets make the most sense for Tyler Warren.
Yeah. So in this, Warren goes to the Panthers. Next one, Colston Loveland. 3 different sides of a cube here. Brandon, you have him going to the Broncos, so a little later. Ryan has him going to the Indianapolis Colts, and Josh, you have the Chargers, I'm sure, the Jim Harbaugh connection there. But Brandon, talk about the Broncos, why you think that's a good fit there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a little weird with Evan Ingram going in there, but they're different types of tight ends, and I think that could be more of the future pick. Looking back now, I should have said the Chargers, but
okay.
they
can change our minds.
So I would say both of those look good, but I think they kind of want a tight end like that. I think he could be like the new Jimmy Graham for Sean Payton, kind of bigger tight end that you can use in the red zone. But since they just paid Evan Ingram, it will be interesting if they would put that kind of capital in a tight end that might not have as big of an impact year one as another position.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Sean Payton in the past load up on tight ends. Like he's always had a full tight end room. I mean, even the first couple of years with Denver, he's had full tight end rooms. They just haven't really had anybody that's broken out, that's talented enough. Evan Ingram gets released, they jump on it, but he only signed a 2-year deal. So I don't think that's really going to, scream to the Broncos, oh, we don't have to avoid. Like at the end of the day, they're going to go best player available. But I do think that they love Amari Hampton, and I think that's going to be their main target in the first round, which is why I went with the Chargers, who were picking after the Broncos as a spot for Loveland.
And in this exact mock, Loveland goes 20 to the Broncos, and Amari Hampton goes 21 to the Steelers, leaving Donovan Ezraku from Boston College, the edge rusher, which I'm sure we all know and love as fantasy football managers.
I actually really like him a lot.
Listen, I'm telling you, if it is a guy in the front 7 out of Boston College, He's solid.
Yeah, he's
solid.
crazy.
He was what,
is
second in the
crazy.
nation in sacks, I believe.
Yeah, he's crazy. He's
solid.
crazy fast off the edge. He's really good, and he's kind of been overlooked, with all the other edge rushers. But I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah, I've seen him go a lot, like later rounds. I've seen him as a target for Philly as well. So
I'm telling you,
that's just what Philly needs. More like guys that shouldn't drop that drop.
I don't know like the stats or anything behind this, but just look at like some of the better and more solid front seven players in the NFL. A weird amount of them went to Boston College, outside of like obviously the Georgias and the Alabamas of the world. A weird amount of them went to BC. Luke Kuechly, Boston College, obviously out of the league now, but Harold Landry, BC. It's very weird the amount of guys that went to BC that play pretty well in the front seven on NFL defenses. So just a fun little thing. So I don't know who that guy is, but he's going to be a stud because he's a first round pick from Boston College who plays in the front seven. Loaded up. Elijah Arroyo. Brandon, you have the Browns, obviously not in the first round. Ryan has the Saints, and Josh, you have the Chiefs. So is that Chiefs at 32 or Chiefs in the second round?
No, I think it'll be the Chiefs at in the second round, and no, it's not 32 because the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So
sorry,
the Chiefs
31.
31. Thank you very
31.
much.
Sorry, my apologies. My apologies.
No, I already touched a little bit on how I think Arroyo can fit with the Chiefs. So, but Brandon, I'm curious with the Browns because David Njoku's there, man. Like, I mean, look, I'm all about teaming up, alumni with former Hurricanes and everything, but why the Browns? That's an interesting spot.
Yeah, I think the Browns in the past have tried to get a second tight end to kind of go with Njoku, and I just thought that if he does fall to like the early third, I thought that would be a good spot for them. And Njoku has had more recently some more injuries and everything, and I was trying to think outside the box.
No, I mean, I like it, especially with the talk that, they're going to go back more towards a traditional Stefanski system. Like they promoted Tommy Rees, who I believe was their tight ends coach. So I think that, them running more two tight end sets, which has typically been a staple of that Kevin Stefanski system. Not a bad spot. I think, and like I mentioned, I do think Arroyo is a very underrated blocker. So I don't know how well he would do in more two tight end sets, but especially when the focus is going to be on the running game. So I'm curious where the Browns end up ultimately taking a running back in this draft. But no, I like that spot.
Just to appease our guy Vince, just so he knows what this mock draft is saying, the Bengals would get Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. Mike Green does not go until 29 to the Washington Commanders.
Asinine. He'll be a top 18 pick.
So just so you know, Vince, according to this guy, Mike Green will still technically be available for your Cincinnati Bengals. The rich get richer with Harold Fannin Jr. Ryan and Josh both say the Eagles. But Brandon, you say the Saints. What do you like the fit there for?
Yeah, I mean, he would be a better Jawan Johnson. I mean, and they don't. The Saints are a mess, to be totally honest. And I mean, that could be somewhere, even if they stay with Jawan Johnson and have Fannin. That's a spot where they could have some nice matchups with that. And with Kellen Moore, I could see he's the type of mind that needs to use Fannin. Like he's the type of coach that could use him the correct way. So that's what I was really looking at when I looked at fit. Kind of more a creative coach that would be able to utilize Fannin the best.
John? Yeah, I think the biggest thing there, the Saints literally just re-signed Jawan Johnson to like a 3-year deal. So hey, chalk it up to the Saints for blowing cap space when you don't need to, right? Like I'm all about that.
Classic New Orleans Saints.
Classic New Orleans Saints, but. No, I like the Eagles. There's a clear connection here. The quarterback coach for the Eagles is a former coach at Bowling Green State who worked with Fannin there. So they obviously will have the inside track, and they've done a lot of work with Fannin this offseason, getting to know him a little bit better. So I do think that he's going to end up being a target for them. And they've got some ammunition. They've got 4 5th-round picks to be able to move up in one of these rounds, whether it's the second round, if they really value Fannin, or moving up in the 3rd round to make sure that they do get their guy. But I do think with all of the trade buzz that's going around with Dallas Goedert, that the Eagles are going to be in the market for a tight end.
The rich get richer at that point, right? I mean, when
Dallas Goedert was a small school tight end too, and he did pretty well. So I'm not going to put it past South Dakota State yet.
South Dakota State, go Jackrabbits. And then the last one here, Mason Taylor. Ryan has him going to the Chargers. Josh, you have him going to the Colts. Brandon, I know you said you would change that Colston Loveland goes to the Chargers. So would that change here with Mason Taylor?
Well, yeah, if Colston goes there, then that would change. And I don't even know who I would say. But because obviously if Loveland goes to the Chargers, there's probably, in my mind, there's not going to be a 3rd tight end in the 1st round. So then it would kind of maybe any team in the first top 20 picks in the 2nd round, he could go.
Josh?
Yeah, I think the Colts are definitely going to be in the market for a tight end. I know a lot of mock drafts have had the Charger or the Colts in on whether it's Warren potentially dropping to 14, or maybe Warren goes earlier and then they take Loveland at 14. But them potentially being in on a tight end. I think that they're likely to do that more in the 2nd round than the 1st round. I think their defense has enough holes that they may look at corner. Maybe Will Johnson from Michigan slips. Jahdae Brown maybe, gets to them. But I think they could definitely use some corner help or even safety help. I know Malachi Starks and Nick Emanwari from South Carolina have kind of been on the radar for the Colts. So,
I'll tell you at 14, the Colts in this will take Jahad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. Will Johnson will fall to 15 to the Atlanta Falcons. So
that's right around that range. So
yeah, so just throwing out, and Jahdae Barron will go to 16 to the Dolphins, just as we're sitting here looking at those 3 picks.
So if that's the case, then the Dolphins then trade back from 13.
Yes. In this scenario, the Cardinals would trade up for Kelvin Banks Jr., the offensive lineman out of Texas.
I can see that.
And again, to keep going on this Tet McMillan train, he's now 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. So, what the fuck is this guy? Is he?
Yeah.
Is he?
I mean, they do need wide receivers because all they have is CD. So
I mean, this is true. But is Tet a top 5 pick? Is he a back end 1st round pick? Is he a 3rd round pick? I mean, what is Tet McMillan?
I remember at the top of this draft cycle when everybody was talking about Tet McMillan as the wide receiver 1 in this class, and now
it wasn't even close.
And now that's not the case. So
no.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how.
I think he's one of the top 3 wide receivers in this class. And I'd say at 13 is a little. I think that's the range where I'd be like, I understand picking him there. I don't think he's a top 10 player. But I've kind of changed my thinking because I didn't think Drake London was going to be as good in NFL because of the separation issues, not big separating college. So I've kind of taken that back because we've seen Drake London's become a pretty good wide receiver, and Tet McMillan's similar type things. He doesn't necessarily separate great, but he's good contested catches, a big bodied receiver. It's another one of those things where I don't know what people thought he was going to run, but on tape, he's not blazing fast. No, so I think that I just think sometimes the combine 40s just get in people's heads.
If you say Tet McMillan and Drake London in the same sentence, I'm there. Tet McMillan is now the best wide receiver in the
See,
draft.
And that's the thing. I don't see a ton of Drake London. I just feel like that because London is a big body receiver, has trouble separating, people instantly go to that comp for Tet McMillan. I think he's more Mike Williams. That's kind of what I comped him to last week. But that's the thing. I mean, that was Mike Williams' game, right? It was go deep and catch the contested catches, the 50-50 balls, those types of things. I just think Tet McMillan isn't as reckless about doing that, so he doesn't get as hurt as much. But Drake London to me is a much better route runner than Tet McMillan is.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. But I think
Unbelievable run.
Ted can do a lot of the short stuff that Drake does that Mike Williams doesn't necessarily do.
I've seen there was who was it? I can't remember. I don't want to give false credit here, but somebody basically said that Ted McMillan could ultimately become like slot Mike Williams, or not Mike Williams, excuse me, Michael Thomas. And I was like, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he has the hands that Michael Thomas has, but I think there's wiggle room for that comp. And I think if a team puts him in that kind of role, I'm all about it. Now, I don't think that Ted McMillan is going to end up being a team's wide receiver one the way that, Drake London became that. I think he's so much more of like a complementary piece, which is why I think he makes perfect sense in Dallas and quite a few other places. Like if he ends up in Denver, I'm out in year one, but I would definitely be in if they don't work out something for Cortland Sutton, right? Because I think that they would end up making, kind of being that same player for them on that boundary X.
Just to round out our fun little talk here on receivers before we get into Brandon's 2026 tight end, little sleeper to look at. The receivers, if you're including Travis Hunter, he goes to the Cleveland Browns. So if you're including him as a receiver, that's where he goes. Second would be Tet to 12 with the Cowboys. They pair the Ohio State receivers, Egbuka and Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle. And at 27, Matthew Golden from Texas goes to the Buffalo Bills, another very wide receiver needy team. And the Rams trade into the 32nd pick with the Eagles and take Isaiah Bond out of Texas. Another guy who I've seen either at...
Bond is not going to be that early.
Well, especially now.
Yeah, especially with the sexual assault allegations.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
This was
even before that, I wouldn't touch him until like the third round.
That's where I had seen him going. That's where I had seen him going.
To me, he's likely going to be into like a 5th round pick, probably.
Oh, especially now.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But there's a little fun wide receiver roundup before we get into Brandon's sleeper tight end for the 2026 draft. Tell me about him because I don't fucking know who it is.
Oh, yeah. So Joshua Simon, he actually, age-wise, he's older. He was in college for 6 years. He was at Western Kentucky first for 4 of them. And then he was at South Carolina the last 2 years. This last year, he had over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns. So this is a guy that I think is definitely a day 3 guy, but is, he has good size. He's 6'4", 250. So definitely, very good in the middle of the field, kind of a matchup nightmare. He's a guy that if he does get drafted, say 6th or 7th round, and in my rookie drafts, I would like take him like one of the last in the 4th round and put him on my taxi squad, kind of hoping that he turns into something. But he's definitely a sleeper. But I'll give a little bonus sleeper that should be a little higher up. Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech. He looked very good at the Senior Bowl. I think he could be more of a mid-round, like 3rd to 5th round guy, and he reminded me a lot of Jake Ferguson.
Hawes coming out this year, though, isn't he?
What?
Hawes is coming out this year.
Oh, I totally misread that question. So Simon is also coming out this year. So I do not have a 2026 for you because I can't read.
And that's okay. And dyslexia is an airborne disease. So
that makes so much more sense because I was like, why is there a mid-round sleeper and then another sleeper?
And then a sleeper.
I was like, why is that on the sheet?
Well, that's okay. And you know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. Nobody's gonna know the 2026 tight end class. I'm just gonna be fully honest with you. You convinced me that Joshua Simon was still in college and playing at South Carolina, and I would have believed you, and I would have been looking for him in my draft next year, and I would have said, "What the fuck, Brandon? He's already in the league." So I would have had to trade a 1st round pick for him. It would have gotten me all jumbled. I've been really mad. That is all she wrote, folks. An hour and 4 minutes on the rookie tight end class with a few other things mixed in because it's really hard to talk tight ends for a full hour without talking about anything else. So, Brandon, appreciate you coming on and joining the show because truly we could not have a show without you because we don't know anything. Again, I thought Joshua Simon was still in college. I thought he was. You convinced me, and I was there with it. But Brandon, one time, where can everybody find you and your work?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Hayby3, at DLF, and then at everything fantasy related, and at the league winners covering the UCF Knights. Make sure to watch out for those interviews and all those write-ups on the practices that I will be attending.
Nice.
Beautiful. You can find Josh at onlyfans.com/the1Hudsonian. Posts all his sexually explicit fantasy football takes on there.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Get in now. 50% off here for till the end of April. It's the NFL draft special. So make sure you get in on that. Highly recommend. Some really good content, some eye-opening content, some might say. So what do we have next week? What are we doing? The NFL draft, right? That's happening next week.
Yeah, the draft. We're doing our annual coverage of the first round of the NFL draft on Thursday night. We'll keep it club fantasy for the guests. I know since we started this show, nobody was doing it. Now everybody's doing it.
Now everybody's doing it. We were the first ones, people.
Yeah, right.
Back it back to 2017 or 2018.
So
we did it.
It'll be fun just to get the family on. Talk football and draft picks and team needs and all that good stuff. But on Wednesday, we're going to tackle some of the hot draft storyline topics.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to do some betting with this because I think props with draft picks and the over-unders on where players will get picked and what positions teams will pick. I think there'll be a lot of fun topics to dive into with those betting odds. So
yeah. Join us.
May even have a guest for it. I don't know yet. We'll see.
Sure. I don't know. TBD.
So right now it's TBD.
Yeah, our favorite guest in the world, TBD. Love that guest. Next Wednesday, 9 p.m. And then, of course, for the NFL draft, oh, God, I'm in Eastern time zone now, 8 p.m. Oh, gross. Can we just start it at a normal time, right? Also, don't say it's starting at 8 p.m. and the first draft pick doesn't come in until 8:32. Let's just...
Yeah, right. I was going to say, I was thinking, if it's scheduled to start at 8 o'clock, maybe we go on at 7:30. Honestly, we could probably start it at 8 and our coverage. Yeah, because nobody's going to get a pick in until 8:30.
Might as well be playing with yourself for the first 45 minutes of that cast. Because what the hell's happened? Tennessee, they have 3 minutes left to make their draft selection. No, they've had 90 fucking days to make the draft selection. They know who they're taking. Hate it. Okay. Well, it's 11 a.m. for me. Congratulations, Vince. I'm happy Australia does that for you. And thank you for listening. All right. Thanks. Hey, good fucking morning to you. Happy April 17th, because you're a day ahead of us. All right. Jeez. Rub it in my face more, Vince. God. Anyways, that's all she wrote. No punt intended. For Brandon, Josh, Ryan, who's not here, myself, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL, clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. We will see you next week.